Hello, my name is Gordon Shepard. I work as a leadership coach, meeting facilitator, and organization development consultant. Basically, my purpose is to empower leaders so that they can positively transform themselves and their organizations. What I'm hoping is that leaders can say, you know what I know, I'm very good at what I do, but what I don't know, I can get someone like Gord to help fill in those blanks. And it's the way that I work. And one of the fundamental things that I've come down to now is by taking what I call the organization planning approach. I've learned from clients over the last 12 years, pieces from my MBA, from the success literature, and distilled that down into what is now ultimately a really crazy 80-page document. And when the leader knows every aspect of what's in those 80 pages, it exposes them to all the different areas of their organization, so they know at a bare minimum, what's the least I need to know about areas that I'm not familiar with. But because I'm responsible as a leader for those areas of the business, I'm actually going to be able to move those things forward. Let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. There's a lot of leaders that are really good at their technical area. They're great drillers, they're great engineers, they're really good at running early childhood education, for example. And these are actually people that I've dealt with in the client base. What happens is they're good at their main area, and then they're probably pretty good at sales in terms of generating revenue and making things happen. But they have real deficits when they are asked about an HR question or an IT question or this kind of thing. By approaching things with the organization plan template approach and making sure that leaders know, again, that bare minimum about those different areas, then when they go to deal with a contractor or when they go to deal with somebody internally in HR, for example, they know at least the bare minimum questions to ask. This came up directly with one of the clients that I had when they said, people just won't do what I want them to do. And I said, well, have you had them write down their current roles and responsibilities? And he said, well, what do you mean? They've got their job descriptions, but what are their actual roles and responsibilities? Now, the leader didn't even know to ask that question. The person in charge of HR hadn't updated the roles and responsibilities. Then what happens is we go and we do the exercise with that individual that's not doing their work in the way that the leader wants. We write down what they're actually doing at a given moment in time. Well, quickly, the leader finds out that the bottom portion, the bottom 10, 20% of what they're doing is off track. It's not where they want them to be. It's not what they're supposed to be doing. And that's just one example of having an organization plan template concept that covers all major areas that leaders need to know. But then when they dip down into certain areas, they know the questions to ask so they can get the answers that they need to really optimize every area of their business and then get back to focusing on what they need to do. A lot of people ask me about, well, how long is this process going to take? And I think it's about 60 to 100 hours of a senior leader's time in a given year. And I'm not just talking about the CEO. I really think this is designed for the entire C-suite, but also the tier below. We want the VPs involved because they're going to be rising up to the C-suite level. And if we can get them into the organization plan thinking, then we know that all of those people in the upper tiers of an organization are actually going to be in the right driver's seat to move every area of their business forward. Here's the idea. I break it up into 5 key areas. The first one, strategy. The second one is the work plan to move the strategy forward. The third one is the people area of your business. Fourth, operations. And finally, the fifth area is results. When we can get those 5 major headers into the minds of a senior leader, then they can start to say, well, okay, which area of the business today are we focusing on? They do integrate, but if we can start to break it down, really absorbable chunks, then I can go into that area. Let's say we're in the strategy area, and I can dig down and say, well, when was the last time I visited our goals for the organization? What are the big things that we want to achieve this year? Are they the right goals? Are we still on track? And then when we start to put this thing together, the one pager is the organization plan dashboard. The 5 areas are there, but then the main subsections under each area are also there. So if you were in the strategy section right now, you of course would see, what is my vision? What's my mission? What are my values? What are our goals and objectives? But the other piece that you'll see in there are what are the pieces that we need to know before we even get to those vision, mission, values discussion? What's the current state of their market? What's the current state of their customers? Do they have the right balance of services and product mix to be able to serve those people at the right level? It'll take you right to that place in your own organization plan, and then you can address those areas and get ready to go into strategic planning and build a really robust strategic plan that will actually get you results. The other piece that's happening in here is that people are building the strategic plans, but typically they're sitting on the shelf and they are collecting dust. And this is a disaster because we know it's really important work. That's the $10,000 an hour work that people need to do, and no action is taken. That's why the second section in the approach that I take in organization planning is to build a work plan. This is the what, who, and when of what we need to do. And if we can address that in a clear way and know ultimately who is responsible, accountable, who is consulted, and who is informed about each area, then we've got a chance at actually moving some of those real key strategic goals and objectives forward. And when we can do that, we know that we can be successful. When we move on in the template and we move to the people area of the business, what's happening in leadership? We want to start there. What's happening at the board level? We want to start there as well. If you can go through the questions that are contained in that part of the document, then you can ask the right questions and answer them to make sure that those major areas of your business are taken care of. Then, of course, we get down to the staffing levels and other areas of your business that need to be taken care of as well. A key question in the people area is, do the people in our business have the right competencies to be doing the role that they're doing? And can we honestly address what those things are, which then gets back into that other thing I was talking about earlier. Have we actually addressed their current roles and responsibilities? Basically, are they in the right seat on the bus if we were talking about, a James Collins reference from good to great? As we move down into the operations area, obviously a much more complex area of what we need to be thinking about. We want to make sure that the senior leaders are touching on all aspects of operations. And I'll give you an example, one where a senior leader that I worked with was not touching on. They fired somebody from their organization, but the way that they fired that person was very abrupt, and they were not aware of the labor standards that they needed to be adhering to do that properly. It opened them up essentially to legal action by that person. Now that's a disaster, but if the leader had gone into the organization plan template and gone through even the basic legal questions that we need to know about when we let somebody go, then they would have had a chance to actually do that in a proper way. You can hear where I'm going. We want to take all of our operations, all the processes within operations, align them directly to your strategic plan, and make them as good as possible, again, to optimize every area. So you'll get all the questions you need in the areas of the business maybe you don't pay a lot of attention to, but you'll know what to ask so that when you go to deal with the people who deal with that part of your business, you're actually well informed and you're in the best possible position to make them successful. I'll give you a good story. I actually dealt with a client where they said, I hate my website. I've got a big problem there. And I said, well, who are you dealing with? And they had a website provider and an account rep was assigned to the client, but it was very difficult because that account rep was in touch every couple months. Well, that didn't suit the pace of the business that I was dealing with. So I said, can I get in between this and actually start to deal with the account rep? Now, I'm not a website builder and I'm not sort of a marketer in that way, but I was able to ask some reasonable questions that my client didn't know how to ask. And I said to the account rep, my client can't read your proposal. There are line items on that proposal that don't make any sense to them. All they want is their website to go out in the world and get them business coming through the door. Now, the account rep wasn't willing to adjust the proposal, so what did? We swapped out that website provider. They were gone. We got a new one in, someone who was willing to work with the client at the right level. Now, what we're doing then in the organization plan template idea is arming that business owner with the questions that they could be asking the account rep so they can kind of do it themselves. So you can see where I'm going with this. The business leaders know what they know. They're good at what they're good at. But how do we get them well-rounded out so they can actually optimize their entire organization? The final column in the template is results. Many people aren't simply putting up what results do they want to get and how are they going to measure them. So typical ones are financial results, right? I want to make 50% more, 100% more revenue in the next year. But how are they going to measure that they're getting there? Well, many people aren't even addressing that with a simple cash flow statement because they say, well, what is a cash flow statement? Now that's something you can ask your accountant about. You can actually then have a tool to measure, are you on track to hit the revenue targets that you might want to have? Other people want employee engagement and they'll have a way to do surveys and that kind of thing where they can measure those scores and know that they're on track. So often we're buried under our current fires and we're not taking the time to actually measure, pick what those results are and measure what they are. That's why it's a distinct area of the 5-pillar approach that I have to this. And we start there first. What results do you want? And then all these other things, the strategy, the people, the work plan, the operations, get us those results. And we're also tracking so we know if we're on track or we're not. So you can get the results that you need and your clients will win, you will win, and your staff will too.